Innovate, accelerate, move technology forward. The startup revolution is now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion today entitled Building a Winning Strategy in the Age of Hybrid Work, brought to you by Empath, Olivia, and Twala for Philippine Startup Week 2022. I'm Apples, the Community Development Officer of Empath, and I'll be your host for this session. To start off, allow me to introduce to you our speakers. Our first speaker is Steph Naval. Steph Naval is a mental health advocate who is the founder and chief executive officer of Empath, a mental health care solutions provider for workplaces, schools, and nonprofits. She graduated from Ateneo de Manila University, majoring in business and minoring in development management. In 2022, she was considered as one of Asia's top trailblazing entrepreneurs under Tatler's Gentee list. Steph was also awarded as one of the winners for UN Women Philippines WEP's Awards under the Youth Leadership category. She was also nominated as Impact Entrepreneur of the Year 2021 by Vilgro PH. The female founder has immersed herself with a series of development and social venture work since 2014 and has a vision of changing the mental health care system in the Philippines for all Filipinos. Our second speaker is Jox Fantastico. Jox is the co founder and CEO of Olivia Technology Group. She has over 15 years of marketing, business development, and leading cross functional teams across Southeast Asia and through two economic crises. She co founded Olivia, an AI enabled expense management app that allows users to scan receipts and dictate expenses, solving the problem of tedious and manual processing of expense reports. Jox advocates financial empowerment, innovation, and supporting women in tech. She has an MBA from University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Later on, she will share with us some policies as well as tools to make the already tedious process less stressful for both employees and accounting departments. Our third speaker is Charlie Carosa. Charlie is the COO and co founder of Twala. Her expertise lies on dealing with people. She brought with her a wealth of learning and development alongside her B2B consulting sales experience. She's using this expertise to thrive and navigate the Web3 space. Currently, she's actively engaged in educating and creating awareness on how the blockchain technology can help solve real life problems. From being a non-tech co-founder to working in deep tech space, she's proven that connecting to people on a personal level remains to be a significant factor when talking about an intimidating space. Twala is a blockchain company that provides a suite of tools to issue, sign, and verify ID claims, credentials, and documents for faster customer onboarding for Web 2 and Web 3 ecosystems. Later, Charlie will share tips on how to optimize document workflow, the major considerations when looking for a document management system, and how it can support business and personal growth. Last but not the least, we will also have a special message from Senator Grace Poe to talk about leveraging the hybrid work setup. All right, so with that, let's begin. I'd like to call on our first speaker, Steph Naval, to give us an overview about how to strategize the hybrid work setup.
Hi, good day everyone. So Steph here from Empath, and today I'd love to talk about on strategizing really a building and winning strategy when it comes to a hybrid work setup. But before anything else, it's important for us to even consider of whether or not your startup or your business can do a hybrid work setup. So these are some top 3 questions I'd like to share that the leadership board can ask themselves before deciding to do hybrid work or fully on-site or even fully remote. So first would be how much of the work requires on-site demand. So it depends per industry, whether it's like construction, restaurants, more of like online platforms. So it's important to first decide what tasks need to be done on-site and what can be done from work from home or remotely. The second question it's important for us to know is how tolerant is the business with asynchronous schedules and shifts. So it divides and goes back to categorizing the workload, what tasks can be done asynchronously and what tasks need to be done synchronously as well. The next one is, are technologies in place to be able to support the different needs of employees and maintain communication? It also depends on the culture and also the working styles of the employees you have board in your company. So next we move on to the advantages and disadvantages. It's important to know and weigh out that with whatever strategy you have, you also must look into the advantages versus the disadvantages. And when it comes to the disadvantages, what are mechanisms and measures that you can do to be able to mitigate these disadvantages? So to be transparent, the first advantages would be to more motivated employees for better outputs, and then it's also more efficient use of workspaces, better work life balance, and lower operational and employee expenses, especially when you don't have to spend so much with an office space or having to do pay for gas and transportation. And it also saves us a lot of time as well, because a lot of productive time is also lost because of traffic and also doing have to transport from one area to another. The disadvantages, on the other hand, it can be harder to communicate and strategize. There's also challenges with scheduling and monitoring, lack of connection affecting company culture, and not suitable for some industries. But the way for us to mitigate these disadvantages is to try the 5 C's affected by hybrid work. And these are what I'll be sharing you all today. So take note, there are 5 C's. So first, it includes communication, coordination, connection, and creativity. And lastly, culture. So first, I'd love for you to identify which of the C's need most improvement. So in Empath, this is something that the leaders would internally map out. And if it's more of communication, connection, culture, and coordination, and after that, you analyze the underlying issues that contribute to it. Third, you make a plan to address it with concrete action steps. And fourth, implement a clear schedule to see if the plan works and make adjustments as you go. So, the way Empath for us, we started first with fully remote and are now transitioning to hybrid work. So, for this, what we did is, especially when you need to make adjustments and you learn as you go along, we start off with first one office day, and then it becomes more frequent. And then we also experiment on the type of days, whether it should be Thursdays or Fridays. So take note, building a winning strategy of hybrid work, depending on the culture, communication, work ethic of your teammates, is also very important. And it is a learning experience as you go along. So, yes, those are my top tips. And for the introduction of when it comes to strategizing or deciding whether a hybrid work setup is best for your company.
All right. Thank you so much, Steph, for enlightening us about the various ways to go about the hybrid setup, as well as how to implement that type of work environment in our own companies. Next, to share with us some best practices and technological innovation for cultivating hybrid work, we have Chalks Fantastico, who will dig deeper into expense management. The floor is yours, Chalks.
Thank you very much, Apples, for that introduction. And for the next few minutes, yes, we'll be talking about best practices and expense management when it comes to hybrid work. But before that, I'd like to share with you some research done by a global research firm called Pure Spectrum. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that we asked them a question. Okay, what is your preferred location? So this is among Filipino working adults. I think it was 18 to 65. What is your preferred location? Is it fully in the office or on site, hybrid, or fully remote? And these are the results of the survey. And I don't know whether it's surprising for you to you or not, but it says that majority, so 55% of Filipino working adults actually prefer hybrid or fully remote work arrangements. Okay. Then we ask them another question, and we ask them to agree or disagree with this statement. All things being equal, I would move to a company that offers hybrid work arrangements if my current company does not offer this option. Okay, let's now see the results of that. And this time, 3/4 or 73% of Philippine employees agreed. And this trend is consistent regardless of age or gender. So What we can see here is that employees may not be, even if they're not actively looking to move jobs, but when they're faced with the opportunity, a company offering hybrid work will acquire talent much more easily. Let me share with you some more data. Majority of employees, 64%, are frustrated by the expense management practices or process. And that was even before the pandemic. They end up paying for company expenses. And hybrid work has only made this even more complex. They now have to email to the manager. The email gets lost. Someone says they didn't receive the expense report. They have to courier receipts. You know, suffice to say, hybrid work arrangements is an important strategy, not just for cost reasons, but also for talent acquisition as well as retention. Okay, so how can we make hybrid work work? So we'll be sharing now with you some best practices. And the first one being you need to specify as a company a base location. So base location could either be the office, your company's office. If it's a branch, if you have a lot of branches, it's a specific branch, or an employee's home. Okay, it sets expectations, and it's important because, say, for example, take a situation where the company specified the base location as the office, and an employee was asked to come to the office to attend a meeting. Now the question now becomes, can she or he reimburse the transport costs? And the answer is no, it is not a business expense, because work-related travel usually takes place only after an employee has started to work. Therefore, a commute to your workplace from your home is classified as a personal trip, not a work-related business expense, because your base has been specified as the office. Now, let's look at another situation where the base location is defined as home. Now, in this case, travel from home to the office is a business expense and can be reimbursed. Now, situation number 3, what if an employee is in a location farther away from the office than their home? The best practice there is that they can reimburse only the amount equivalent to the trip from their official home address. So as you can see, specifying your base location determines what expenses can be reimbursed and what cannot. Okay. So another practice that we've seen is companies providing home office kits. And when setting up a policy for this, it's really important to specify what employees can charge, the limits on amounts, as well as the expected replacement cycles. So this is an example that we've come up for you, and you need to adapt it based on the nature of your business and the nature of the role of the employees. For example, if an employee is in a marketing role and does a lot of videos or live streaming, then things like ring lights and similar equipment might be allowable. Another area is in digital purchases. Now, instead of going to places like National Bookstore, office supplies are now being bought by employees from, say, Shopee, Lazada, or other e-commerce sites. Now, it is best practice to tell employees to buy from e-commerce stores that have a TIN number, because not all of them have. This way, your company can claim input VAT credits from the BIR. Now, it may end up slightly more expensive, but I can tell you that it's worth it. The next thing I'd like to discuss is really about expense management as a process. Now, in the Philippines, it's been largely manual, us having to gather receipts, manually encode them into Excel, paste them into paper, take pictures, send as an attachment, and then the accounting staff having to sort through each email, download receipts, physically send them for approval. And this takes hours for each expense report, especially now that accounting teams are no longer just down the corridor from the employee. In hybrid work arrangements, it's being able to simplify this process and allowing employees to submit reports from wherever they are is really important. So simplifying expense management means that companies can reduce processing time by, at least 80, 90%. It reduces errors, you solve the problem of lost or faded receipts, and you improve compliance. But probably equally or arguably more important is that it protects employees from having to, bear the financial burden of unreimbursed expenses. So nag-aabono na lang sila. Okay. So really, this is our mission at Olivia, to simplify expense management processes through intelligent automation. Employees can scan the receipts or dictate an expense. It gets auto-categorized. Duplicates are detected. Reports are auto-generated, and our approvals are streamlined. But that's enough about us. What we've actually done is create a handbook for you that you can simply customize and adapt. You can scan this QR code to download it and just place your company name on the space provided in one of the pages. So just as a conclusion, I just like to make 3 points. One, hybrid is not a binary decision. It's not 0, 1, or a yes or no. On one end of the scale is being fully in the office. On the other end of the scale is being fully remote. Everything else in between is hybrid. Now, it's important to clearly define as a company where you stand in that continuum. Second is that having no policies or outdated policies may result in things like inconsistent implementation, violations, and even possible audit situations, and that you don't really want. Thirdly, there's a lot of uncertainty and adaptation that's happening. But I think as a company, you can look at this as an opportunity to relook at your current, often complex processes and streamline them, not just to adapt to hybrid, but to position your company for even greater growth. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing with us some best practices for expense management, Jocks. Next up, we have Charlie Carosa to talk about how to protect our companies from fraud in a hybrid setup. Charlie?
Hi everyone, thanks Apple. Yes, good afternoon, good afternoon. Okay. So I'm here to talk about how we can all transition into a hybrid work without compromising security and the integrity of our documents and identity. So, trust is at the core of every business. We have to be able to trust anyone who we are dealing with in any business transaction. And in every business transaction, we can reinforce trust two ways: with your documents and with your identity. You should be able to have some sort of documentation recording of what you have agreed on, and then you have to sign it, and then you also have to be able to trust that who you're dealing with is in fact the person they are claiming to be. Then you require them with your with their IDs rather. With the way that we are doing things, everything is paper based. We ask them to sign on paper. We ask them to submit copies or photocopies of their IDs, right? Now, everything becomes more complicated in a hybrid work setup. Why? Well, mainly from working in a common space before, now everyone can be working from anywhere. And we have seen how this has also slowed down businesses. Why? Because now we have to wait for people to go to the office to actually sign their documents and to actually submit copies of their credentials. And we know that time is money when it comes to business, right? So things get more complicated. As I have just said, paper is slowing down businesses for a lot of reasons. And some of the reasons you can actually, read in my slide. I think the most glaring thing now is how do you now transition from a paper-based transaction to a soft copy, to a digital copy of your engagement without having to worry whether down the line someone will be able to tamper with your document of engagement, or someone using your identity for something else, right? The good thing is you are not alone in thinking that this is a problem. All right. Documents, specifically papers, are the preferred raw materials of fraudsters. As we transition from paper to online copies to soft copies of our documents, this criminals also have leveled up their skills so that they can still continue doing what they're doing, which is to tamper with documents and profit from it. Um, it is an alarming $5 trillion worth of business losses last 2020. So it has actually climbed up like 3%, no, tripled of the 2011 statistics. Because now in the age of deep fakes and photoshops where everyone can now simply photoshop something so that it can look like the real thing, businesses, individuals easily fall prey to tampering, identity theft, and as I have mentioned, this is leading to financial losses and to individuals ourselves. um, this is something that can be also bothering to you, like for instance, when you receive that message, "Hi Charlie, gusto mo bang kumita ng 5,000 every day? Mag-text ka na." See, so from just offering you an opportunity to now knowing your name, doesn't that bother you, and doesn't that make you think what else do they know about you? Like, would they know your birthdays too? Would they know where you live? So they can use all this information for something that can harm you mentally, physically, and probably financially too, right? So that's why we all have to be smart enough to transition, not to just making electronic copies of whatever, may it be documents or identities, but to digital copies. All right. Why? For instance, here are the benefits that we can reap from digitizing the processes. And like I said, in every business, at the center of it would always be your documents, your papers, and your proofs of identity. So for one, if you digitize your signing and KYC processes, it gives back the full control of the personal data to every data subject, meaning to every single person who submits their proof of identities to businesses or to other people that they transact in general, right? It also provides them an easier access to online and offline services. It also reads of having to memorize your password or having to change it every 3 months or so. Of course, ultimately it helps you protect your identity from being used by other people without your consent. It also helps you reduce significantly your customer acquisition cost, even your carbon footprint. It's now possible for you, for any business, to transition from paper to paperless 100% without having to worry about the possibilities of fraud, right? And it significantly shortens not just your sales cycle but also your process workflow that is heavily dependent on paper. And of course, lastly, it's 100% protection against identity and document fraud risks, which can be sometimes more important than like losing money or something. So I have been telling you about, you have to be careful with transitioning to just electronic copies or digital copies. Now, what's the difference? At least for, let's just focus on electronic signature. I think everyone in their lives have already encountered having to sign a PDF file that was sent to you. And by practice, based on our surveys, a lot of people would do this. And you might see yourself, doing this at some point, wherein you have signed into a white paper, scanned it, removed the background, attached that signature to a PDF file or a Word file, and then submit it to another party, thinking that, oh, okay, since it's in PDF, no one can use it anymore. All right. I have bad news for you. All you have to do is to convert that PDF file back to an editable file, and then whoever gets access to it can actually copy and paste it to another document. So now, what's your security from that? So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that electronic signature is any electric representation of your identity. May it be a scribble of your document, of your signature that was pasted to a file, or whether it's an emoji, a color, a sound, um, or a TypeScript representation of your name. That is an electronic signature. It becomes problematic when you are trying to prove that it is indeed you who attached that signature to a document, or if it's not. And the other thing is that whether the document where your signature has been attached to is in fact a document that you would like to sign, right? There's no way. That's why it is more safe for businesses and individuals to go with digital signature. And what is digital signature? Yes, it is an electronic signature, but with a security that is attached to it, which allows everyone to track whether the document that you have signed is indeed still the same document that you have signed before. And it also protects your electronic signature from being copied to another document and be passed on as something that you have signed. So it provides, auditability and security, and your ability to actually verify that document as something that you have indeed engaged with. The same goes for your digital identity. With your digital identity, now it becomes, you know, something that you can authenticate without, or verify without having to compromise sharing too much information. So that's the beauty of going from, from a paper based document and copies of your ID to your digital um, documents and digital IDs. So folks, hybrid work can be a beautiful thing for both, you know um, the business and the employees. You just have to have the right tools so you can thrive in a hybrid work without, compromising security and privacy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Charlie. Definitely, the time spent on looking for information manually takes up a lot of precious time. So, thank you for teaching us how to go about digitizing our workflow in this day and age. Up next, we have Steph Naval once more to talk about the various mental health strategies for hybrid work arrangements. These strategies aim to boost productivity, engagement, morale, and the well being of employees. Once again, the floor is yours, Steph.
Great, thank you, Apple. So first, you were able to talk about in this segment about first the whether or not your company or your startup should be able to follow a hybrid work or when is it strategic. Second one, I love the conversations and discussion that was discussed by Jocks and also Charlie on specific tools and digital tools that companies can use to be able to best support the hybrid work setup. Now, to the last part, one of the last parts of the segment, we'd be talking about how to still engage your employees and still boost the mental health of your employees despite having a hybrid work setup. So, here are really great steps that I'd love to share that even we and Empath would apply and also share to several of our clients on how to be able to still boost the productivity, engagement, morale, and well being of our employees. So, we'll start first with the match the task to the right location. So here in Empath, we have days that are called office days, and then the second one are called work from home days. For this one, for office days versus work from home days, we try to delegate and categorize which work tasks are best to be done at home for self work and where you get the peace of mind of being at your home and also being able to quickly and have deep focus. There are other tasks we categorize in office days. So whether it's like really intensive meetings that are best done face to face, also certain workloads that need to have more collaboration within departments, and also very selective with who from the team should be able to attend these office days. So for office days, you best to categorize the ones that are office exclusive tasks. Second, collaboration with other teams. More meetings scheduled on office days also boost camaraderie and also creative discussions. We even have team lunches out or team building. So that's something that we try to engage with during office days. So it's not just office exclusive tasks, but then also the bonding activities that you can also schedule within those office days. And then the next one is the work from home. So it would be the personal work tasks that don't include resources from the office, deep work and distraction free tasks. So those, let's say, for example, self work reports, being able to work on certain policies or reports for a client, etc. And also to create a dedicated workplace or workspace at your home. And then the next one, which would be stick to routine while maintaining boundaries. Boundaries are also very important in empath as well. But take note, just because someone has boundaries doesn't mean that they're not willing to go all the way for, let's say, their company. We just value a very good balance in order to be a sustainable worker and provide sustainable productivity for your company and your work and outputs. When it comes to building routines, it's important to give structure. So, however way you want to schedule your day, you should stick to it. It's different per the nature of task. It's different for every person. So, or different role or workload for the company, or which role you play at as an employee. So, as leaders of your organization or leaders as your startup, it's important to help them structure their days also. For it's very easily prone, let's say when you're at home, to have those lines blurred. And then the next one is set boundaries for work time, break time, and home time. So, as much as possible, even me as a leader, I'm very mindful about lunch times with my employees or with being able to have work with my teammates because that's really important for sustainability. I'm also a believer of strategic rest for each and every individual because like burnout is such a common phenomenon, or like the hustle culture is a very common phenomenon here in the startup space. But I just like to share that even in empath, we also don't we're very mindful about burnout, and we really try to find ways to very much mitigate these circumstances. And we're happy to say that we have relatively high job satisfaction, employee engagement, a really healthy and thriving culture here in empath because we invest on the mental well-being of our employees. And because of this, it's also part of it would be sticking to routine while maintaining boundaries and also employee engagement. With employee engagement, create opportunities for employees to meet and interact with each other. Employees who work from home or the office are equal, so avoid some biases as well. And the fourth one, which should be flexibility, is essential. Employees, when work at home or whether it's in the office, where they are most productive. So it's also important to play with the strengths and also mitigating the weaknesses of your employee. So for me, for example, with Empath, I also am mindful that if they're more productive in the morning, afternoon, night, or office at home, or maybe in a coffee shop. So it's something that you as leaders or as startup builders are most mindful about your employees. Build trust in the team, which increases job satisfaction, loyalty. Give them also the freedom for them to really step up and also be able to manage and lead their own tasks. And also the talent pool grows and is more diverse. For when it comes to flexibility, it's also getting to know each and every employee. So for me, I actually schedule bi-monthly kamustahans with employee team members just to check up. It's a more of a mental health checkup and getting to know what are struggle areas that you're having, and then really find ways to help. Okay, how can we manage this workload? Can this be reassigned to someone else and they can take in more workload that they're stronger at and very much satisfied to be able to work on. So these are strategies that we also have in Empath, at the same time still maintaining the mental health and boosting the engagement of the employees, but at the same time not compromising quality and outputs that we want to deliver to our clients and to our target sector. And the fifth one would be open communication. I cannot stress this enough. Open communication is something that might be quite difficult for Filipino culture workplaces. But here in Empath, we advocate it a lot. It also helps reduce stress levels, decreases feelings of isolation, and boosts productivity as managers are also informed. When it comes to hybrid work, people might need to be more intentional and a bit more of an effort to be able to openly communicate. And especially when it might be actually less intimidating for other people because it could be a message or they can prep themselves before a meeting. But as leaders, it's important to be able to advocate for open communication. I know people say this a lot, but I think it's also to be mindful to even be open to negative feedback. Negative feedback, tough conversations. It's not just about the good and fun conversations as well. Open communication is not penalizing an employee for being able to speak out about something or be able to express a concern. Take it with empathy. At the same time, find a solution based conversation of how you can approach things that they're struggling at. Keeps everyone on the same page, communicating concerns helps to resolve it. Check in on your colleagues and make time to connect with loved ones. So I tell my employees that, I'm also invested with you beyond work. Like, I value maybe what are your goals? Do you want to pursue becoming a clinical psychologist? Do you want to what areas of growth do you want to learn? Like, if there's anything Empath can support you, or even me as a CEO can best support you, that's something that I make sure openly communicate to my employees. Or for example, if they're struggling, if you can't complete the task, um, I'm fine. It's just important for you to communicate to me so we can fully address it instead of them just randomly like not showing up and not being able to produce a quality task. Maybe I can help them out in it. Maybe I can redelegate it to someone in the meantime if they're not in the proper headspace. So these are 5 tips that I found very helpful, especially with building the mental health engagement, mental health boost of morale and wellness of your employees in the company. And I think many people in the startup space find it so difficult, especially, which is understandable because the leaders, they're in a lot of stress and they're just trying to go as fast as they can because that's the nature also of startups. But I think it's really worth the investment and makes even a more sustainable startup, and you don't easily lose really good people if you invest and continuously invest on the mental health of your employees, which is something that Empath has done and also has provided to several of our clients. And yeah, would be happy to help other or other companies to be able to do that as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Steph, for sharing with us some mental health strategies that we can apply as we go about this new age of the hybrid work setup. Hopefully, everyone was able to take notes from the 3 speakers, but before we proceed with the Q&A, we'd just like to present to you a special message from Senator Grace Poe, who is also an advocate for the hybrid work setup.
Isang magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. If there's one lesson that we have learned from the pandemic, it is that we can adapt to change. COVID-19 forced us to re-examine and revise our policies, practices, and principles. To survive and thrive in a post-COVID world, organizations have had to make a digital transformation, shift operations online, and adopt work-from-home arrangements. Government's role is to accelerate innovation and create an enabling environment so that all enterprises and our communities can be productive, adapt easily to future crises and complex situations, and find a better life-work balance for our people. After all, the new normal has already released us from the tyranny of the cubicle. Why do we want to go back? In light of this, one of the laws which I have proposed is the Better Internet Act. This bill will enable businesses to adopt hybrid work by improving access to more reliable, faster, and affordable internet service. In a gist, the Better Internet Act mandates the increase in service coverage, sets the threshold speed, provides for other service standards, protects consumers, streamlines permits, requires infrastructure sharing, lists the responsibilities of regulators like the DICT and NTC, and sets penalties for any violation or non-compliance with any of the set standards. Under the Act, we are also considering amending the CREATE law to allow registered businesses to be more flexible in their work arrangements without prejudice to enjoyment of fiscal incentives. Revising implementing rules and regulations of the telecommunicating law are also being considered. Another important law which would be implemented fully is the Innovative Startup Act, which focuses on providing benefits and removing constraints in order to encourage the establishment and operation of innovative new enterprises. We will surely need the local and technology startup community to move forward in the new normal. I, for one, support your industry and I am willing to work with organizations in finding solutions to challenges that face all of you. Thank you very much, and good evening to all of you.
There you go. Although Senator Grace Poe is not able to be here today, we'd just like to thank her once more for leveraging this discussion in the workspace and for advocating for it and the rest of the startup community. Thank you once again to our speakers for sharing their insights, and thank you to those who are tuned in. We hope you're able to learn more about how to build a winning strategy in the age of hybrid work. Feel free to check us out on these social media handles as well. Okay, so with that, we'd like to invite you to join us in the next session for the Q&A, where you can catch Steph, Jox, Charlie for questions about building a winning strategy in the age of hybrid work. Thank you, everyone.